Hey guys, it's Protoss here, and today we're going to talk about the basics of fighter gameplay. Now, the first step to understanding fighter gameplay is understanding what a fighter is. This ship here is a very basic $44 fighter. Now, this fighter can, with a full battery, deal about 100 damage with the entire battery. Now let's build a fighter. So, the first thing we're gonna want is a 30-degree mount. That'll keep our fighter cheap so we can make lots of them. Next thing we're going to want is a light beam so it can shoot. Now light beam is a great fighter weapon because it's very light. It only weighs 5 tons, so your fighter can go really fast. And that's important because fighters are supposed to be mobile and a ship that can take advantage of opportunity. Now, we're going to want this scout thruster to move our fighter along, as it's really cheap, so we can get lots of them. Now, so our fighter can turn, we're going to want this $4 wing, and we're taking the $4 wing because look at how light it is. It weighs 0.1 tons. And so, with that, our ship will go faster, and it adds a lot of turn rate for what it is, for only being $4. Now, to power our ship, we're going to get this $10 battery, and it's good here because it's really cheap, and that's kind of what we're going for. Very cheap, spammable fighter. Now, for armor, we're just going to use 2 pieces of volumetric armor. And volumetric armor doesn't matter which one you choose, they all have the same cost to health point ratio. And that there is the basic fighter. Now, I'll delete that one. And this is the cleaned up version that I have made. So, let's go see what you can do with this little fighter. Now right now I'm in a local game, so I'm controlling both sides. So as you can see, the fighters, they're really small. They're pretty fast too. Now the fighter, you can see it costs $44. And so, in terms of ships, that's pretty cheap. So, they're fast, they're maneuverable, they're taking advantage of opportunity, and really what they're great for is map control. So you can use them to take points very quickly. And they're great for early and late game because they can take advantage of those opportunities that arise when players don't have a lot of money and they don't have lots of large ships that generally are really effective against fighters. As you can see, they just took those points real fast like. Really good thing to do with your fighters. Now, we go to the other side here. Fighters are great. We have them. We can select 3 of them. We can run them to a point, and they'll cap it. Nice and fast like. Now you see, what I'm going to do with these fighters here is I'm going to line them up. And so as I have these fighters lined up, it actually creates a little bit of weakness. So right now, beta team, the gray team, has 10 fighters. And so now, the white team over here also has 10 fighters. But based on how they're positioned in the fight, they can lose maybe 2 and kill all 10 of beta's fighters. Let's just give them a second to get in position, and then they can attack. Now what they're going to do here is they're going to come up and go down this line. And so what's happening here is one fighter's getting attacked by 10. So these 10 fighters will kill this fighter before it can deal all its damage. So let's show that. Here we go. Look at them go. They're gonna zap these fighters before they can deal any damage. And so that's one of the huge parts of fighter gameplay. It's very important, is knowing when to clump up your fighters to kill your opponents. So just like that, Alpha completely destroyed Beta team and still has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fighters left. Now, you see why fighters can be pretty great. They're very opportunal and can take advantage of situations like that very, very well. But then here we see the disadvantage, where this fighter can run out of energy. And that's where you need carriers to keep your fighters alive and fighting, so they can use their battery again and again. So I'm going to fly them up closer to the carrier so we don't have to wait for them to get out to it. So let's go ahead. So our fighters are getting all charged up here. And that's good. Let's go ahead and spawn 10 more fighters. 12 more fighters. So we're at 20. Now this is 20 fighters for Alpha Team. And 20 fighters only represents about $1,000 in value, because these fighters are roughly $50 each. So for $250 you can get 5 fighters, which remember us from earlier translates into about 500 damage just in the batteries to light beam. So we can move these fighters around, we can use them to take command points, and that's good and all. But they get really powerful when you group them up. And so some of the things that have evolved to counter fighters grouping up have been nukes. Now when you're playing fighters, you have to you have to be really vigilant for nukes. Because, as I'll demonstrate here, a nuke can come in, and this nuke is an EMP nuke, so it just depowers fighters. But all these fighters are now out of energy. And so the 500 damage they could have done, the 100 damage each fighter could have done, is now reduced to 0 because they have no energy to deal that damage. And so the white team can now come in with less fighters and completely kill them, even though these ones are clumped. Because they're out of energy, they can't fight back, and they just get slaughtered. So I'm actually going to make a carrier for white team here. So let's review what we've learned so far, right? Or after these fighters die. So you see they're completely vulnerable, because the white team only attacked with 15 fighters here, while the gray team had 20, so they were up 5 fighters, which generally means you win the fight. Because the fighters were out of energy, they lost, because they couldn't fight back. Now, let's review what we've learned so far. When you have fighters, you can draw them in a line like this. Now a line may seem like an impractical shape, but a line is very hard to nuke, and that's the advantage of making this line structures, that you're not vulnerable to nukes anymore. And the disadvantage of this line structure is that while you may be practically invulnerable to nukes, you are extremely vulnerable to getting swarmed by the other team's fighters, crashing down your line and killing your fighters. So the counter to this, in a scenario like this, where the enemy has fighters ready to line up, ready to go down your fighters, kind of like this, where they have them lined up on top and they have nukes ready if you clump up, would be to get your own nukes, so you can kill the enemy fighters as they come in. Because when they come in here and they go just like that and they just zap a bunch of fighters, see, now they're all clumped up, and then as they get clumped up like this, coming down your line, you can come in with a nuke and kill them all. Well, depower them in this case. So that's some of the basics of fighter gameplay. Why spreading in a line is a good idea. Why spreading lines in a line is not a good idea. Why clumping up is a good idea, and how that has its own disadvantages as well. Now, I think the next thing that I'd like to cover in this video would be how to go about managing your fighters in sort of a crisis scenario where they come in and they get nuked. And what are you going to do when that happens? Well, one of the options is you just don't care. Or, actually, here. I want to say you don't care, but you have your fighters get nuked, but that's not the only resource they have. They have HP as a resource, too. And so you can use those health points to body block projectiles. So, and you see, even when they're out of energy, they move a little bit. Just because of the fighter they're on. It's so, the thruster they're on takes so little energy to move. Is that they can body block a few of these orb shots from the carrier here. And so they're not completely useless when they're dead, but they do lose all their damage. Well, when they're out of energy, they do lose all their damage, but not all their health. So you still use that to soak up damage from the enemy team and force them to waste that energy. So those have been my basics on fighter gameplay. I'll do a video in the future on advanced fighter gameplay and how to optimize your fighters to suit your needs.